Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Learning with Jelly. So, today we're going to be on our third video in our Python Fundamentals playlist. This playlist is to get us some brief tutorials on some fundamentals before we move into machine learning and other data analytics concepts. And today is going to be list comprehensions. Now, this can be a difficult concept, but hopefully, we make it very, very simple in this tutorial. For those who are still trying to practice for loops and you feel a little shaky on it, maybe list comprehensions will be your thing. So, before we even get started, let's talk about the basic syntax of a list comprehension. We're going to have some type of output. So, we're going to perform some type of function based off of a collection that we're interested in with an optional condition. So condition is optional in a list comprehension. Okay. So this is going to be the basic syntax of our list comprehensions where we say do this for this collection in this situation. Okay. So keep that in the back of your mind as you progress through this video. So let's go ahead and get started. So some objectives for today: list and data science. Why should you care? Before we even go into list comprehensions, we're going to talk about what exactly is a list and what are some things that you can do with a list. Then we're going to go and create our own list comprehensions. So, list, why should you care? So, list allows us to store data, which is very important in data science. Okay. Though it's not the most important collection you will work with, it is still important in loops. So, say for instance, I want to create a list that's storing my accuracy scores of a model, right? So that way I can compare my model's performance down the road. So, lists are one of these go to things that you can utilize in functions that you defined, or you can utilize in for loops or list comprehensions, etc. So, what is a list to begin with? So, a list is a collection. It's enclosed by square brackets. Okay. It can contain multiple data types. So it can have an integer, a string, or even other lists. Okay. So here in this visual, we see that we have a list assigned to the variable L where we have an integer, we have a string that we talked about, and we even have another list within this list. Okay. So lists can contain all different types of data, okay? This is not going to be the case for when we get to arrays. So it's very important to distinguish between your different types of collections. A list has the square brackets and it can house a whole bunch of different data types, okay? So now let's see some lists in action, okay? So we want to talk about some common list methods. So just like you can index a string, meaning you can pull out parts of a string, you can also index a list and pull out parts of a list. You can remove and add things to a list. You can sort a list, and you can also concatenate lists together, okay? So this is a nice little visual of the different things that you can do with lists. So if your input is circle, square, square, and you want to append a triangle, that means add a triangle to this list. Your output would be circle, square, square, triangle. Okay. If your input is circle, square, square, and you want to insert a triangle at the first index, right? The triangle is now going to be in the first index because the circle starts at 0, right? So there's a whole bunch of list methods that you can have documentation on with a quick Google search. Okay. So let's see some. So I have employee lists, and in this list, I have a string of jelly. I have my employee ID, and I have all of the different departments that I work with. So HR, IT, and communications. So, say for instance, I want to get the second index from this list. So, just like strings, this starts counting at 0. So, jelly is in the 0 index. My ID is at the first, and this entire list is at the second position. Okay. So when I run this block of code now, I would get the second position, which is all the lists of the departments that I collaborate with. Okay. So, outside of that, I can also add an item to a list. So, I can do a dot append on my employee list to add the string of senior director. So, you can guess before we run this block of code that senior director is going to appear at the end of the list. And it most certainly does. I also can sort a list. So, say for instance, I have a numeric list of department numbers and I want to sort these, right, in ascending order. I can call that variable, which is department numbers, the method dot sort, and I can sort it in ascending order, right? I also can concatenate a list with another list. So this is going to make one long list where I'm going to have my department names first, and then I'm going to have their corresponding department numbers next. Okay. So when I run this, I get all of the department names, and then I get their corresponding department numbers added at the end. So you definitely can do concatenation. Like I said, there's tons of things that you can do with a list. You can do a pop, you can remove, you can put it in reverse order, et cetera, et cetera. But these are just a few that we looked at for demonstration purposes. Okay. And you're going to see this dot append a lot because as you're doing your for loops, for instance, we saw in the second video, we added something to a blank list. Okay. And that was the dot append method. All right. So let's go ahead and keep going. So now, since we know what lists are, they're collections surrounded by brackets. They can house many different data types. We can create a new list based off of an existing one. Okay. So, in order to do this, we can create what we call a list comprehension. Okay. Where we have what we want to do. Okay. And what collection we want to do it to with an optional condition, right? So this says I want to square x for x in range 0 to 50 if x is an odd number. So x modulus 3, right, is a remainder. So if you divide it by 3 and you get 0, that means that x was an odd number. So I only want to look at odd numbers. And for every odd number in this collection, which is range, I want to square my x. So let's see how that looks. So in this case, I have a list, okay? I have a list of salutations, and my list is all strings, okay? And so what I want to do is change this list to be all uppercase. So say for instance, I want to generate an email and I want everybody's salutations to be uppercase. So I can create a list comprehension that's surrounded by brackets that does letters dot upper because dot upper is a method for strings that we learned in video 1 for letters in my collection, which is salutations. Okay. So notice that letters here is the same as the letters here. So I'm saying, hey, for letters or each item, that could be X, whatever I want it to be, in my collection, make those letters uppercase. And now I'm typing proper salutations again so I can see the output. And here we go. We have all uppercase. Okay. Let's see another example that we have. So in this case, we have hours. So, say for instance, I want to create a list comprehension that's going to change hours to minutes, right? So, in this case, I have hours as a list, right? And I'm doing what I want to do. So, this is what the output I want. I want to multiply the hour by 60 because that's going to give me the minutes for hour in the list of hours, which is up here. Okay. So I'm saying go through this list, and for every hour in this list, take that hour and multiply it by 60. Okay. So then when I run this, I get the minutes corresponding with it. Okay, so you're starting to catch on slowly but surely. If you need a refresher on just basic for loops, definitely go to the previous video as well. Let's look at another one with a condition, right? So I'm saying I have numbers 1, 10, 3, 20, and 5, and I want to add 1 to the number for nums and nums if the number or the remainder, right, when you divide it by 2 is 1. So that means if I divide a number by 2 and I get a remainder of 1, that means that that number is odd. So I'm saying, hey, I want to change all of my odds to even numbers. So if it's an odd number, add 1 to that number, okay? For every number, this is my collection, right? In my nums list, notice that num is the same as num here, only if the number is odd. Okay, because I only want to change my odds to even. So when we do that, we get our odds of 1, now it's 2. We get 3, now it's 4. And we get 5, now it's 6. Okay. So it takes some getting used to, but I highly recommend that you go through practices. Make your own list. Okay. You can do instead of hour here, you can do some numbers and try to square those numbers, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. But it's going to have this same process where I want to do something for this collection with an optional conditional statement. So the conditional statement, like we have in this last example, is in fact optional. So now you know the beginnings and the fundamentals of list comprehensions. I highly recommend that you practice these. If you want the code, the link would be in the description to the GitHub, and right in the Python fundamentals folder, you would have the code where you can practice with or follow along. So thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to Learning with Jelly, and I'll see you on the next video.